I love Honda, but there are some things that they do. They just like, you just gotta admit it's a bad design. I mean, look at this.
Well, I appreciate you watching all the way to the beginning. Hey guys, welcome back to HRG TV, and today we have a beautiful 2000 CRV, and as you can see, it is already lifted. Now this has a competitor's brand lift kit on it, and he's having a bunch of problems. He's got axle problems, it's got steering issues and things like that. We're gonna do a complete overhaul on the suspension on this thing today, and we're gonna do our 4-inch kit. So this is gonna be an updated version of an old video where we did a 4-inch kit a long time ago. We've changed a few things about the kit since then, and hopefully this video will be a lot better for you guys to see how to install the 4-inch ultimate lift kit on your CRV. So in addition to the lift kit, we're actually gonna be doing brand new struts front and rear. We're doing brand new axles front and rear, and we're gonna be installing the TrueHeart front upper control arms for lifted application, which the 4-inch lift kit does require to have. And of course, if you're interested in the 4-inch kit, we do have them for sale right now at HRGOffroad.com, so go check that out. But with that said, let's get right to it.
Oh, you see the axle boot split right there? Yeah, it's leaking. Oh, the boot split. This one's busted too, look. Oh, yeah, look at this.
Oh, jeez.
Look at this one too.
Wow.
All right, with a car this old, you want to check everything, just give everything a little look over and just kind of figure out what's going to need to be dealt with now that it's, getting taken apart. So a lot of times, you want to look at stuff like the lower ball joints, tie rod ends. I mean, obviously the axles need to be done. Struts, these little bellows can often be torn or cracked. So, take a look at that. The rest of this looks okay. Not a lot of major damage. Muffler's kind of smashed. Oh, and look, he's got the TrueHeart toe arms. So those will help. Those will definitely come in handy. All right, step one of this job is going to be to remove the battery terminal. And I know some of you may have a question as to why in the world you would do that. And the reason is because oftentimes when you're doing a car like this, you can forget to close the door all the way and the battery will run dead, especially if this job may take a couple of days. Okay, from here, we're going to work on dropping the engine. And basically, the only mounts you have to drop from up here are the driver and passenger side motor mounts on the sides. So the rear mount is actually attached to the rear subframe. So that one does not have to be dropped from above. The whole subframe goes down with that rear mount attached. So that all stays together. But to get to these, we got to take all this crap out of the way. A couple of bolts up here. Let's pull that off like so. And then this, well, you can see the little ear's broken, but that fits down in this little rubber piece here. So you just want to support the engine with like a jack and like a piece of wood or something so it doesn't fall when you take off the motor mounts. You actually have 1 bolt and 2 studs going into the transmission. So we have to take this whole bracket off and we have to take these studs out. You might get lucky and the stud and the nut come out as one piece and you don't have to worry about trying to back them out. Okay, last one's right there. Okay, and then we can get this bracket off. And again, on this side, you've got 2 studs that have to come out. Just kind of push that out of the way. Easier than taking the power steering pump off. All right, so the idea of non-destructively removing these studs is you take 2 nuts and then tighten them against each other, and then you can back the stud out with that. And that's what we're gonna try first. If that doesn't work, we're gonna do the destructive method. You can think of that how you want, but we're not actually gonna be reusing these studs. They're gonna go in the trash. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter how you get them out, they just need to come out. Now, you may be able to just back it out. Yep, did you see how I did that? Basically, just tighten them against each other with the impact, and then just back them out. Okay, so there you go. Stud came right out, and you can save that if you want or not. We're gonna try that again on this side, see how it goes. We might get lucky twice. And then backing it out.
There it is. Easy. By the way, the nut that I'm using is the one that was attached right here. It's a little bit shorter than the other ones, so you should have one of these when you take it apart, so that's what you'll use. Okay, take this out. And you gotta do the same thing with these studs as you did on the other side. So take one of these. I almost said these nuts. Take one of these nuts. You gotta stop saying that. It's not working over here. Let's try it one more time. Yep. Last one. So basically we're going to put these back together and we're going to put these longer bolts. These come with the kit. These are an M12 by 50. And basically what that's going to do is support the weight of the engine when we lift the rest of the car up to get underneath it. So I'm going to put these in temporarily, and then once we get the rest of the subframe lowered down, we'll be able to come back through and install spacers between this and the transmission case. Okay. I'm just going to thread that in. So these are just here to help it not fall. That's all they're there for. Same thing on this side. I'm going to set it on, temporarily thread these in place. And don't worry, we'll go around, tighten all these up before we're finished. Double check everything, always. What I got to do now is turn it about 90 degrees so we can get to the bottom one. What I'm using is a couple of socket extensions and a wobble socket. Doesn't matter, it's not pulling it off anyway. You lose a lot of torque with all the extensions and stuff. Get a little more torque on it, maybe it'll help. There it goes. All right. Before we take this coupler off, we're going to secure the steering wheel, and I'll show you how to do that right now. All right, so just as a precaution, when we're disconnecting the steering column, what you want to do is run your seatbelt through the steering wheel. And the reason for this is so that you don't get the steering wheel in the wrong position, because what can happen is when you put it back together, you can turn the steering wheel too far and rip apart the clock spring inside there. There's like a ribbon cable that runs all this stuff. So you want to just hold this in place with a seat belt. So that's pretty much the engine done up here. Everything else is underneath the car. Let's get to it. All right, the next thing to do is we're going to remove this plastic splash shield or whatever. Get that off. There. Now we got to remove this, well, CRV owners call this a useless bar because it is pretty useless. Whoa, whoa, well, there wasn't much holding that on. Jeez. There's only like one plastic screw holding this whole thing on. All right. I thought all these screws right here went into the metal here, but they just attached to this useless bar. Well, there's really no good reason. I think that's why it got its name. It doesn't really do anything. It's not robust enough to have a, crash worthiness, and it's definitely not robust enough to tow from. I guess you could say maybe it's sort of a sacrificial thing because your oil pan is right here. Yeah. I mean, if it hit this, it might do something, but not much. All right, now that we've got the useless bar removed, we're gonna go ahead to the torque mounts. These are always broken.
I'll tell you, I love Honda, but there are some things that they do. They just like, you just got to admit it's a bad design. I mean, look at this. And this is broken too. Look at this. Jeez. Okay, now that we've got those off, we can go ahead and move on to the rest of the subframe. There's 8 bolts total in the CRV subframe. Interesting fact, the 2002 and up only have 4. So I'm not sure why they did that, but first 2 are gonna be right here, right through there. All right, so these are the longer bolts that come with the kit, and on the subframe, there's actually 2 different lengths. The shorter ones get the shorter of the 2 that come with the kit. You can see these are a little longer. And if you look at how these work, there's an 1.5" subframe spacer, and the way they thread in, they end up being exactly the same length. So you don't lose any of your thread engagement at all. It just has a longer bolt with a spacer in it. But for now, we're just gonna put them in there temporarily. Okay, take this one. We want to just pay attention when you're taking it apart. Replace them one at a time and use the short bolts for the short bolts and the long bolts for the long bolts. All right, so those are threaded in temporarily. We're gonna leave those alone for right now. Oh, we gotta put these bolts in as well. Dang. All right, we're gonna do the same thing up here with these bolts. Just, you know, putting them in temporarily just to support the weight or whatever. We thread these in by hand whenever possible. I sometimes forget to do that, but you always want to do that, especially on an older car where there could be rust. And you know, some people enjoy an good old cross-threaded bolt, but I'm not one of those people. Now we're gonna go ahead, now that we've got everything bolted up, so to speak, we're gonna go ahead and drop this. The engine and subframe we're gonna lower all together as one unit. Looks pretty good. Everything looks normal. Okay. All right, at this point we can start lowering the subframe down. We'll have to do that before we get the steering coupler apart anyway. So we're gonna go ahead and we'll loosen these bolts and you'll see the subframe lower. You just wanna do it very carefully and slowly. Why does it do that? Stupid thing. Okay. All right, now we got to deal with the steering coupler. It's going to be a little bit challenging to get down in there, but basically what we're going to do is try to remove that coupler off of the steering column. I'm actually going to lower this down even more. I'm short, can't reach it. You slide it up onto the shaft a little further and then maybe get it off the bottom. Well, that certainly is a pain. So what I'm trying to do is knock this up and off of that steering column. There it goes. Okay, now what we're gonna do is go ahead and start putting the spacers in. Take that out. Now, I don't know if we've dropped it enough to get those in there. We haven't. Okay, let me figure out what we need to do to get that down more. As you can see, this is all loose enough now. We're gonna go ahead and drop these in, put our bolts in. This is our H spacer. That's basically just gonna sit right here. Okay, let me just tighten these up. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and install the spacers on the transmission bracket. So, again, you don't wanna take all the bolts out at one time. We're just trying to lower it a little bit, so basically, we're going to loosen them, but not take them out. Let's see, that might be enough. And then we can take the other one out. Drop that on the ground. Last thing we've got to do here on the engine is to install the two spacers on the driver's side. So basically the same process as everywhere else. You're just going to take off the one bolt at a time. Kind of tight. There it goes. All right. And then just tighten it up. And then put the other one in. Okay.
So we found out later that the microphone was never plugged in on this clip, so we have no audio, but I'll just try to walk you through it as we go. Basically, you're going to install the new steering coupler in place of the old one, paying attention to the flat side of the steering column shaft as it comes out of the firewall. You're going to want to line up the bolt hole with that flat edge so that the bolt can actually pass through and clamp the coupler to the shaft. It's a little bit of a pain to get your hands down in there, but once you get the steering coupler onto the steering shaft, just push it up all the way, and then you can get the bottom part on where the bottom half of the coupler attaches to the actual steering rack. So at that point, just turn the steering wheel as needed to get access to the bolts, and then just go ahead and tighten those up.
All right, that's the front subframe done. And now let's move on to the drive shaft loops and the carrier bearing. I don't know if this guy will get them out, but let's try it. Oh yeah. So it didn't drop much because we got this holding it up. Get in there. There we go. 2 more bolts. We're gonna leave one of those hooked up to keep this from falling on my head. Ooh, look at this. It's I think that's supposed to sit right there. Jeez. I don't know how long that's been off. All right, I guess we gotta take this off anyway. Okay, let's go ahead and deal with the exhaust right now. So basically, we've dropped the engine and transmission 1.5 inches, so the exhaust being connected to the engine and transmission also needs to be dropped some. I don't think we gotta drop it a full 1.5 inches, we just gotta drop it a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab the extended exhaust hangers. So I got this really nice tool here, specifically made for this job. How cool is that? It's the first time I've used it. If you don't have one of those tools, a good idea would be to go ahead and spray this with WD-40
And then, you know, you just use a pry bar or something, you can get it off. And then we'll hang it up right there. That dropped it down just enough. Now, as you can see, everything fits just fine. Nothing's touching. So I think we're all set here. We'll come back and remount those safety loop things. I'm not sure exactly what these are supposed to be called. If you know what these are called, put it in the comments down below. I want to say a safety loop, but I don't know if that's the technical term for them. All right, so one thing I want to point out, these little straps right here, I found some of them are like bent flat, maybe from hitting stuff or whatever. So when you put this up here, you want to make sure that it doesn't touch right here. And if it does, you just need to pry down a little bit to get enough room right here. So I'm going to show you what I mean. I'm going to go ahead and tighten these up. And this one looks okay. We got about 1/4 inch, which is more or less what we had to start with. But if yours is tight or if it's touching right here, you just take a pry bar and just bend it down a little bit right here, and then you'll get you some clearance. Or if you wanted to just take it and bend it with a hammer or something, but make sure that this doesn't touch. Okay, moving on to the back. He's always in the shot, this guy. Dang.
Jeez. Let's see what the deal was out here.
All right, before we do that, we got to actually put this in so that the subframe doesn't fall on us. Supposed to do that first, but I kind of forgot. There we go. Okay, now we can take the other ones out. Again, Honda with the thoughtful hole placement there. Just go right up in it. All right, so rear diff mount has obscenely long bolts that you can just reuse. See how long those are? There's already an 1.5 inch gap, and we're still on threads. Basically all that thread, and you don't have to replace these bolts, just reuse them. Oh yeah, that worked. Always in the shot.
Basically 430, by the way.
Yeah, I know, you can go ahead and take off. All right, let's just fuck it, let's just call it. We'll do it later.
The next day.
All right, go ahead and do this side real quick. Oh, what the heck? Kind of move this out of the way, sort of. The rear subframe done. Now I think we got to do the muffler hangers.
Now, obviously we don't need a longer hanger here because this is already dropped with the subframe, but we do need one back here. And then there we go. Okay. And I think normally there'd be another one on this side, but the trailer hitch is in the way.
Okay, brake line brackets, you basically got a left and a right, and I know this is obvious to most, but not to everyone. So it's left and right as you sit in the car facing the front, not as you face the vehicle from the front. So left side is driver's side, right side is passenger side on US models. So the L is gonna go over here. And what you're gonna do is relocate this piece up here like this with the factory bolts, and then we're going to bolt it back in. I'll show you. Like that. Now just tighten them up. There's your brake line bracket. Take out the trailing arm bolts. Put this bolt right here. I'm guessing this trailing arm bushing isn't doing a whole lot.
These are the toe adjusters right here, and it does have some True Hearts on there, which is helpful. Gives you a little more adjustment than factory. All right, we're gonna install these R-tabs. Basically, it's just a rear toe adjuster bracket that drops it down about 3 inches. And it is a little bit of a snug fit. There's actually a little ridge inside this pocket right there that gives it a little bit of resistance when you put it in, but you could just use, you actually use a rubber hammer. Just tap it past that little spot. Let's see how it's lining up now. Now, normally this would have a little structural brace that goes from here to here. This car came in with it already removed. And if you guys know CRVs, you know they didn't even have them in 1997, 98 and up is when they added them, and most of them are rusted through. So I really don't know how much those braces do, but the kit actually does come with spacers that you can relocate it down and keep it. So if you wanted to keep it, the parts are there to do that, but this one doesn't have it. And again, hopefully you're gonna get lucky on this because these are also bolts that tend to rust out. We got lucky on ours. All right, make this so we can turn it. Now we should be able to get it in there, no problem. Okay, there we go.
This took a little bit of finesse to get it in there, but
not too terrible.
there you go.
All right, you see how I did that? I basically just moved everything around as needed to get it in place. There you go. You just tighten these back up. Tighten this up. I'm gonna probably try to get that right in the middle. The alignment tech will be able to adjust this however it needs it to be.
And we can go ahead and take the strut out. It's just this bolt here. These bolts too, as you can see, tend to rust into the bushing on the bottom of the strut. So we got really lucky. A lot of times they'll just shear off right here. So if your car is anywhere near the rust belt, you're probably gonna have to torch this or else cut it here and here to get this strut off. It's a real nightmare, I'm not gonna lie. Now that that's loose, we'll go ahead and loosen this one as well, just let it drop. Just pull this up, ooh, carefully. Take that off. Oh, this back on. It just keeps the dust out. All right, and then just cover back. That's it. All right, now that we got the strut put in, we're gonna go ahead and start bolting it all back together. Starting with this bolt right here. And I actually think this was the bolt that came out of there. Let me just double check that. You know what, I think it was. Okay, I'm not putting this rusty bolt back in. So I got this new one here we're gonna put in there to make it a little better. Now we're not gonna tighten this just yet because what you wanna do is have all the bushings at ride height and then tighten them. So once we get weight on the suspension, we'll go ahead and tighten all this stuff up. There it goes. Okay, it's just caught a little bit. Now we can go ahead and put this bottom bolt back in. Maybe. Okay. Can't really tell. Let me try getting it to go in again. Nope. This guy, always in the shot. Jeez.
There's a gentleman here who sells and does press brake tooling.
Oh. I'm gonna have to step back and look at this for a second, figure out what the fuck's happening. It's like this needs to go down, and that needs to go up, and that needs to go sideways, and nothing fits. All right, you know what I'm gonna do is lower the lift. What?
It's just like
Shifting around? Yeah, don't worry about it, it's fine. It's safety schmafety, you know, sort of. I'm gonna loosen it just a little bit. Okay, so basically as you saw right there, I just lifted this up. You can use a floor jack to do that, but that basically just kind of moves everything into alignment. And we'll have to do the same thing up here for this upper bolt, or this top control arm right here. Man, that bushing is fucked up.
3 days later.
All right, now we're gonna install what we call a rear upper control arm relocation bracket. What we gotta do is drill a hole right here, and we're gonna go 1 inch down from this top edge. Measure down 1 inch right there, and then you're gonna wanna get it 1 inch from the back, so right about there. And just mark your hole with a punch. And it needs to be a 1/2 inch hole. Just use a 1/2 inch unibit, it's much faster. I wasn't very centered with my hole. You do a better job than I just did. My drill bit drifted over a little bit. It's not the end of the world. We can just drill it in here like that. I'm over here showing you how to do it and not doing it properly myself. Thread the nut on in the back here. All right, so now we're gonna install our adjustable rear upper control arms, and what you wanna do is install these 2 bolts first. It can be tempting to put this bolt in here first, but what happens is these 2 bolts will cross thread. Very, very easy to cross thread those. Ask me how I know. We're gonna compress the suspension up so that these two will line up, similar to what we had to do in the front to get the upper ball joint to line up. I can't pretend that this is not sketchy because it kinda is. Probably be better to do this with a floor jack, honestly. The other side worked out just fine. This one is not. Okay, that should be enough. So this should just line right up. Okay, slide it in from the top, usually is easier. All right, we're gonna go ahead and start on the front now. And first thing I'm gonna do is take this wheel spacer off. Now, normally doing the lift kit, you don't have to take the axle out to do it, but we're replacing the axles in this one, obviously. So I'm gonna show you how. Basically just. Oh, look at that, it moved. Cool, that was easy. Now normally you would have to hit this with a hammer to get that to release, but it wasn't very tight, so it just came right off. Take our brake line off. Looks like all the weight's being held up by that, so that's no good. So let's get this off. I just noticed something interesting about this CRV. This is an ABS equipped CRV. And someone cut the wire because it looks like this is not the original spindle. Normally there would be an ABS sensor right here, and this spindle normally would have 2 threaded holes for the sensor. So somebody took this apart and put different spindles in it. Okay. Man, that is really hard to get out. There we go. Okay. All right, now we get this supported to keep it off of that brake line. There it goes. A fresh unit here. Hope it's the right one. Looks like it is. I think it's, make sure it's popped in all the way. Yep. It popped in all the way. Now, we can try our best to get this back together. There it goes. A little bit more. So close. Get in there. Go home, Axel. Are you too good for your home? There it goes. All right. Okay. Let's edit that to make it look like it was easy. That was actually a pain in the ass, but it's in. Now we can move on to the rest. We got to do upper control arm as well. This one completely worn out. So, and also we're doing tie rod ends, which these are already, they're Moog. I don't know that they're completely shot. I think ironically that might be the ones that he bought to put in it. Are these Moog? You can't tell. None of this stuff has brand names on it, so I really don't know what's what. No. I mean, these don't look bad, so I might recommend to him that he doesn't bother with these, because this has all been done. You can tell
There's no holes in this boot. So this boot's been replaced, and more than likely the inner has been replaced, and the outer is covered with grease, but I think it's from the axle. Oh, you know what? Nobody ever greased this. So, you hear that? It does need to be replaced. The inner seems fine, but I guess it's one of those where you might as well replace it all while you're in there type of thing. So I guess we'll do it. Fuck, I don't really want to. All right, this little box, whatever this is, has to come out. And be careful because on my CRV, that bolt actually sheared off. So there's a good chance yours might shear off as well. So just try to be careful if you can, taking that one out. All right, now I'm gonna try to catch this coming out the bottom. That's not too bad. All right, so same thing goes for the front with not really knowing what you're gonna get when you get these aftermarket struts for the RD1. So I wanted to just point out the similarities between these two. First of all, same number of coils, and the coil wire is the exact same thickness. I cannot tell what brand these are, but these old struts right here are actually gonna be preferable to the new ones, and I'll show you why. If you look at this little tab right here, this has to support not only the weight of the vehicle, but it absorbs the impact in case everything bottoms out. You really shouldn't be ball hauling a CRV, but if you did and it bottomed out everything, all the weight is gonna land on this tab right here. As you can see, there's nothing supporting this fork at all, except for this little tab. In contrast, if you look at this one, there's a collar that's welded all the way around the diameter of this strut. And it's actually happened to me a couple of years ago. I was at a Gambler 500, hit a big bump, sheared it off, and the strut actually passed through the fork and all the way down and hit the top of the axle shaft. We were in the middle of nowhere when it happened. So this is just fair warning to not use these struts. I'm gonna unfortunately have to because this is what the customer provided to me, but I would not recommend these. Oh, you know what I didn't think about?
What?
And I didn't point out in the video is that there is a left and a right. Let me just verify that I did this correctly. Fuck no. Hang on. All right, so I made a mistake, so you don't have to. I basically didn't pay attention to these fronts. They are a left and a right, and I actually grabbed the right side one and put the left side fork on there. So we got to take this back off. Now, if you're confused about what's what, the forks actually have an L and an R on them. This is a JL, so this is left. The struts are basically clocked differently. So I'm going to line these up so that the tab is showing the same way on both of these. And you'll see, yeah, see how these are clocked differently. So one's a left and one's a right. Unfortunately, they're not labeled of which one's left and which one's right. Man, you really don't know what you're gonna get with these. These don't fit very well either. Yeah, that's kind of a sloppy fit. Look at this. This is a really poor. Okay, now that we've got that on there, we're gonna go ahead and install our spacer. This is an HRG 2-inch spacer. And I know what you're thinking. How in the world are you calling this a 4-inch lift if it's only a 2-inch spacer? Well, what you have to keep in mind is that this strut does not bolt directly to the wheel. You have an arm, a lower control arm that creates a little bit more lift than the actual height of the spacer due to the geometry of the double wishbone suspension that these have. So you don't need a 4-inch spacer to get 4 inches of lift. You need a 2-inch spacer. We're gonna slide this over like this, and we're gonna drop the bolts in from the top. Oh, yucky, look at this. What? Well, look at it, it's not clocked properly. It needs to be here, see?
Huh, yeah.
That's straight down at the bottom, and at the top, it's not even close. Oh, man. The thing is, I know that I've got the right strut because the other one is even further off.
So this needs to turn. This needs to turn quite a ways. I like these struts less and less by the minute. I wonder if normal shops would charge extra for that kind of bullshit. I guess they'd have to, wouldn't they? Because it's not, now it's not just a matter of bolting it in. Now you gotta fix it. Oh, that turns pretty easy. Oh, you know what though, look. It's turning at the bottom.
Oh.
I think that's just how it's gonna be though. Because there's no way, other than disassembling this with a spring compressor, that's the only way really to clock the top hat and not have that turn. Let's see how this lines up now. Should be closer. Yeah, there you go. Okay, that's in, hopefully permanently. I think we'll circle back to all that. All right, we got to turn it a little bit more, but now that it's bolted up at the top, we can just turn it with this thing. There is no front sway bar installed on this car. Whoever owned it or owns it now took it off. So I think the important thing to know here is that if you're doing this job, I think a step that should have been taken before this was to remove this sway bar end link. And I think that's gonna be the key to getting this put together as easily as I'm getting it put together. So just keep that in mind. If you have one that has a sway bar, take that sway bar link off. It should be a lot easier. Let's get that in there. Okay, whew. I think from here, we need to that so that it doesn't fall. That'll just protect it. We don't want the axle to slide out. There's 2 bolts right on this shock tower, one here and one here. And I think we can just take some of these bolts out here and reach that back one. So let's do that. Oh, it didn't hit the ground. All right, so this is our new upper control arm from TrueHeart. And we're gonna just slap that bad boy right in where the other one was. Like that. Oh, boy, this thing doesn't work very good. Like that. The other side is nowhere near as easy. You gotta take the battery out, which sucks.
4 o'clock, by the way.
Okay, well, maybe we can try to get this side buttoned up. Okay, so at this point, what we gotta do is lift this up to meet that, and we only got about 1 inch or so to go, so it should be pretty easy. Give it a couple more turns, not very tight actually. That's pretty good. A little more. Normally, you would put this castle nut back on and put the cotter pin in, but we're gonna replace this piece. All right, we're gonna wrap it up here, put it all back together. Yep. Okay, that's it. So both sides are lifted, but we still have to do the front upper control arms on the passenger side. It's a little more difficult because there's a battery in the way. Try to take this one off first. Okay, no problem. Make sure you don't touch these terminals across with it. Starting to think this would be a lot easier if I just took the whole battery tray out. I don't want to though. Okay, I'm taking the battery out. There's a real good chance that all these bolts will be rusted out on your CRV. So hopefully you'll get lucky. That's out of the way. It smells like battery acid. Take the old one out. Put this one in there. Okay. Put the battery tray and battery back in. Air box goes back in. We're almost there. Huh. It's weird, it doesn't want to plug in anymore. It won't plug in. I don't understand. I mean, I just unplugged it. Plugs in part way and then stops. Oh, okay. You just have to really force it. Some minor issue over here with the engine being lowered, this tube doesn't line up as good as it could. I think we can just loosen this up here and then kind of just turn it a little bit and help it line up better. Yeah, that's a little bit better. I'm gonna reclamp it. It's not perfect, but the seal seems to be good. So I think we're all right, honestly. So, but if you're really picky about that, you may want to go ahead and just do an aftermarket intake. That would eliminate that problem completely. I basically just guessed on the adjustable upper control arms to see how long they needed to be. They do move quite a bit. And as you can see, I'm off by quite a bit. It's a little bit more positive camber than you need. I think they're gonna need to adjust it quite a bit when it gets to the alignment shop. So I'm not gonna worry about getting it perfect. Okay, so basically we're just gonna eyeball it, look and see if it's straight. That's pretty straight. The side's got a little bit of positive as well, so let's dial this one back some. Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, guys, that pretty much wraps it up for the installation on this 2000 CRV here. As you can see, it came out amazing. It sits a little bit high in the back, but I think you prefer that because if you put a lot of stuff in the back or a lot of people, it will set level. Plus, this CRV has a trailer hitch on the back. So if he ever decides to haul some jet skis or something like that, it won't sag. All right, so he's got some Buddy Club P1s on here, which are pretty sweet. Pretty sure they're a 15x8 and they're a low offset. I want to say these are probably plus 10 maybe offset. So they have a little bit of poke to them. And I don't think I would go any wider than this because what'll happen is when you steer, the tire can swing around wide and end up hitting back here. But the way this is set up now, He's got 29s and they fit just fine. I actually think he could go up to a 30, maybe even a 31 without doing too much more here. He has trimmed the front of this bumper, which I don't think is necessary for this particular setup. I'll throw a couple of tire sizes up on the screen right now for you if you wanted to just experiment a little bit. But I think this is a pretty good combo for this particular lift kit. If you do a lot of steep climbs with it or anything like that, especially if you have the manual, the bigger the tire you get, it will be a little bit worse off for performance. So just keep that in mind when you're picking tires. But other than that, I'm really happy with how this turned out. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and if you're interested in this lift kit, we do have it for sale right now at hrgoffroad.com, so go check that out. I appreciate you guys watching to the end, and I'll see you in the next video.
Always be rolling. You never know when something might catch on fire. Now we've... Okay.
We'll just wait for him to go away. What kind of wheels are these? Buddy Club. Okay. Make sure we got audio. Oh, self-tangling wires. Sweet.
All right, so that's pretty much the plan with this thing, and I appreciate you guys, what am I saying, watching to the end? No. Appreciate you guys watching the beginning.